It is true that sometimes it takes losing something to truly realize its value. Africa, vast, ancient, and magnificent, was once a unified land of kindred spirits. But today, it is carved up into borders, nations, and identities that have turned family into strangers. Yet history whispers the truth. No great empire in the world has ever been formed by one clan, one tribe, or one nation. Empires are built on amalgamations, diverse peoples uniting under one banner. Rome, Egypt, Britain, each bears the name of its capital, but the soul of every empire was collective. Civilizations rise through shared effort. Elites, governors, peasants, and yes, even slaves. This system, however, rule or be ruled, has never truly served justice. Africa, too, was swept into it. The first empire to ever rule the world stood on African soil, Kemet, known to many as ancient Egypt. A civilization of unmatched innovation, spiritual depth, and structural genius, led by indigenous African rulers. But Kemet fell, not by foreign strength, but by internal strife. Haughtiness, betrayal, and division opened the gates to foreign invasion. And from that fall emerged a tragic legacy: mistrust among African people. Never again would the continent see a unity like that of Kemet. The centuries that followed were not barren. Africa birthed powerful, sophisticated, and visionary kingdoms. The Kingdom of Congo rose in the 14th century with provinces, a taxation system, foreign diplomacy, and a centralized monarchy. The Asante Empire thrived with a constitution enshrined in the sacred Golden Stool, placing checks on royal power. In Central Africa, the Luba and Lunda empires were built on sacred kingship, advisory councils, and structured succession. Further east, the Buganda Kingdom in present-day Uganda developed a centralized monarchy with an organized court system, local governors known as Bataka, and a standing army. To the south, the Zulu Kingdom emerged as a militarized and socially intricate state under the strategic genius of Shaka Zulu. The Matapa Empire, straddling parts of Zimbabwe and Mozambique, stood as a regional trading superpower. Meanwhile, Great Zimbabwe, which flourished between the 11th and 15th centuries, was a monumental stone metropolis marked by complex trade networks and political organization. These kingdoms were far from isolated. They were deeply interconnected, woven into a vast global network of trade, knowledge, and innovation. Along the Swahili coast, cities like Kilwa, Mombasa, and Zanzibar bustled with activity, their ports receiving ships from Persia, India, and China. Merchants traded ivory, gold, and spices for silks, porcelain, and fine fabrics. Deep inland, the trans-Saharan trade routes buzzed with caravans. From Mali and Songhai, gold and salt flowed northward, reaching North Africa and even as far as Europe. These were not backwaters, they were financial arteries of the medieval world. In the south, the ruins of Great Zimbabwe still whisper of greatness. Chinese porcelain unearthed in its walls proves this ancient city was in contact with the Far East, long before European sails ever touched African shores. Africa's economy was equally advanced. The Nok people mastered iron smelting as early as 500 BC, a skill passed through generations of Bantu metallurgists. Cowrie shells and copper ingots became standardized currencies across diverse regions, showing a sophisticated understanding of trade and value. In science and technology, Africa led in many ways. Iron furnaces blazed in Tanzania and Nigeria long before modern blast furnaces. The Haya and Chaga developed advanced irrigation and terracing to sustain agriculture on tough terrains. And then there's the Dogon people, who mapped the invisible Sirius B star centuries before telescopes confirmed its existence. Shipbuilders crafted dhows that crossed the Indian Ocean, riding the monsoon winds with expert precision. Even mathematics thrived. The Ishango bone shows early numeracy and timekeeping systems. Africa's brilliance wasn't only practical, it was architectural and artistic. Great Zimbabwe was home to over 300 dry stone structures built without mortar, a feat still admired today. In Ethiopia, the rock-hewn churches of Lalibela, carved from living stone, remain wonders of both faith and engineering. Timbuktu, with its libraries and urban design, stood as a beacon of scholarship. And across the Swahili coast, coral stone houses and Islamic-inspired architecture added elegance to function. Education was sacred. In Timbuktu's University of Sankore, thousands of manuscripts covered topics from medicine to astronomy. Even where writing systems weren't formalized, knowledge thrived through oral traditions, griots, easy bongo poets, ancestral praise singers. Medical knowledge was preserved through herbalism, trepanation, and public health customs that rival modern systems. Yes, Africa even had written languages. From Nsibidi in Nigeria to Tifanak among the Tuareg, Africans recorded their world in symbols and script. And woven through it all was culture, rich, resonant, and rooted. Music that layered rhythms with meaning. Dance that marked coming of age and transformation. Art that sculpted stone, bronze, and clay into objects of deep spiritual power. So by studying these kingdoms, we see a picture. Africa was integrating. Tribes were merging. Systems were maturing. Trade was thriving. But despite this momentum, the deep wound of betrayal lingered. Mistrust among tribes and leaders sabotaged the dream. And now, the truth must be told. Africa had everything it needed to become a world empire. Not just the land, but the mind, the soul, the structure. She had governments, constitutions, and sacred kingship. She had economic systems, from gold coinage to transcontinental trade. She built cities, raised monuments, mapped stars, and healed the sick. She developed languages, documented laws, and mastered iron and agriculture. Africa was not behind. She was ahead, just not united. But here is the truth they never taught the world. In the 18th and 19th centuries, Africa was not asleep. She was waking up again. Kingdoms were merging. Alliances were forming. A great union was being forged, not by outsiders, but by Africans themselves. Leaders like Shaka, Mzilikazi, Zwangendaba, Soshangana, and others were not just building kingdoms, they were trying to finish what Kemet had started, a unified African power. But not all chiefs understood the mission. Some were ruled by fear, others by ego, and that ancient wound, distrust, reopened. Before the final brick of unity could be laid, the colonizers came. They didn't conquer a people who were lost, they disrupted a people who were about to rise again. That is the gist of the matter. Africa was never inferior. She was interrupted. But if she had remained united, if that final union had been achieved, then Africa would have been one. And that truth changes everything.